Hello listeners, my name is Cliff Ratzq. I'm the author to an ongoing series of novels, the Lightning Brain series and its sequel, the Keeper series. And in addition to being an author and a writing coach, I teach at universities and have a consulting business. If you'd like to learn about any of this, please contact Prime Solutions via the lightningbrainseries.com website. Now, I try to make videos that I think authors and writers, as well as most people, might enjoy listening to. And I want to cover material in a manner that you might not see on the news or in other YouTube or similar videos. I figure that if I can't find a different point of view, there's no reason for me to add something that you can find elsewhere. Well, the title of this video is We the Americans, Comparisons with Other Peoples. I bet many of you have seen yard signs proclaiming Black Lives Matter, women's rights are human rights, no human is illegal, science is real, love is love, kindness is everything. It certainly sounds like Americans are a proactive and optimistic people. But recent news polls show the American public is in a foul mood. But that shouldn't be surprising. Inflation, gun violence, COVID-19, Roe versus Wade, so on and so on, have put people on edge. News reports usually hype the concerns, so more viewers will listen in to hear all the bad stuff. And a just-released Ipsos survey finds that over 8 in 10 Americans say we are on a path to fragmentation and self-interest. By the way, Ipsos is the world's third largest insights and analytics company, present in 90 markets worldwide and employing more than 18,000 people. It was founded in France in 1975, and it's listed on Euronext Paris since July 1st of 1999. But let's look beyond the short-term melees and take a longer-term historical look at the American people. Western Europe has been fascinated ever since the French and American revolutions gave birth to the American experiment for a better form of government. Europe, as well as other parts of the globe, want to know what the American people are thinking, and how Americans differ from other people has long been a subject of fascination and study for social scientists, dating back to Alexis de Tocqueville, who's the early 19th century French political thinker who described the United States as exceptional. Democracy in America, written by Alexis de Tocqueville between 1835 and 1840, is considered one of the most comprehensive and insightful books ever written about the U.S. Having seen the failed attempts at a democratic government in his native France, de Tocqueville set out to study a stable and prosperous democracy in order to gain insight into how it works. Democracy in America is the result of his studies. The book was and still remains a popular reference because it deals with issues such as religion, the press, money, class structure, racism, and the role of government, and the judicial system issues that are just as relevant today as they were then. Many colleges in the U.S. continue to use Democracy in America in political science and history courses. There are 2 volumes to Democracy in America. Volume 1 was published in 1835 and is more optimistic of the two. It focuses mainly on the structure of government and the institutions that help maintain freedom. Volume 2, published in 1840, focuses more on individuals and the effects that the democratic mentality has on the norms and thoughts that exist in society. De Tocqueville's main purpose in writing Democracy in America was to analyze the functioning of political society and the various forms of political associations. Although he also had some reflections on civil society, as well as the relations between political and civil segments. He ultimately seeks to understand the true nature of American political life and why it was so different from Europe's. Democracy in America covers a vast array of topics. Volume 1 covers social condition of Anglo-Americans, judicial power in the United States, and influence on political society, United States Constitution, freedom of the press, so on and so forth. Volume 2 of the book extends into how religion in the United States avails itself to democratic tendencies, Roman Catholicism in the United States, pantheism, equality, and the perfectibility of man, science, literature, art, so on and so forth. Here's what he says about the features of American democracy. He characterizes it into 5 features. 1, love of equality. Americans love equality even more than we love individual liberty or freedom. Absence of tradition. Americans inhabit a landscape largely without inherited institutions and traditions that define their relations to one another. Individualism. Because no person is intrinsically better than another, Americans begin to seek all reasons in themselves, looking not to tradition, nor to the wisdom of singular individuals, but to their own opinion for guidance. 4, tyranny of the majority. At the same time, Americans give great weight to and feel great pressure from the opinion of the majority. Precisely because they are all equal, they feel insignificant and weak in contrast to the greater number. And 5, importance of free association. Americans have a happy impulse to work together to improve their common life, most obviously by forming voluntary associations. This uniquely American art of association tempers their tendencies towards individualism and gives them a habit and taste for serving others. And here are his predictions for America. First, he anticipated that the debate over the abolition of enslavement could potentially tear apart the United States. And that happened during the American Civil War. Second, he predicted that the United States and Russia would rise as rival superpowers. And they did after World War II. Some scholars also argued that de Tocqueville, in his discussion of the rise of the industrial sector in the American economy, correctly predicted that an industrial society would rise from the ownership of labor. In the book, he warned that friends of democracy must keep an anxious eye peeled in this direction at all times. And he went on to say that a new-found wealthy class may potentially dominate society. According to de Tocqueville, democracy would also have some unfavorable consequences, including the tyranny of the majority over thought, and a preoccupation with material goods. Also, an isolation of individuals from each other and society. I think you'd agree that his insights proved to be quite accurate. Well, think about this. Every country and its people contribute to shaping the world while the world is shaping them. But much of what de Tocqueville said still stands and adds to our American resilience and resourcefulness. And according to a recent global survey, Americans give more help to others than the residents, when surveyed, in over 150 countries. The poll conducted last year with about 1,000 residents in each of the countries asked people whether they had donated money to a charity, volunteered their time, or helped a stranger in the previous month. By averaging the responses of the people who had done each of those things, the survey ranked the United States as number 1 with a score of 60. The average score of all of the countries included in the survey was 31.6. Following behind the United States was Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. Nearly 200 years after de Tocqueville's book, Americans' emphasis on individualism and work ethic stand out in surveys of people around the world. When Pew Research Center surveyed people last year, 57% of Americans disagreed with the statement, "Success in life is pretty much determined by forces outside our control," a higher percentage than most other nations and far above the global median of 38%. Surveys show that Americans are more likely to believe that hard work pays off. And when asked on a scale of 0 to 10 how important working hard is to getting ahead in life, 73% of Americans said it was a 10, or very important, compared with global median of 50%. Americans also stand out for their religiosity and optimism, especially when compared with other relatively wealthy countries. In general, people in wealthier nations are less likely than those in poorer ones to say religion plays a very important role in their lives. But Americans are more likely than their counterparts in economically advanced nations to deem religion very important. More than half of Americans said religion was very important to their lives, much higher than the share of people in other countries that are considered wealthy. People in richer nations tend to place less emphasis on the need to believe in God in order to be moral and have good values than people in poor countries. While the share of Americans holding that view is far lower than in poorer nations, like Indonesia and Ghana, the U.S. stands out when compared with people in other economically advanced nations. In the United States, 53% say belief in God is a prerequisite for being moral and having good values. Americans are also more upbeat than people in other wealthy nations when asked how the day is going. About 4 in 10 Americans describe their day as a particularly good day, a much higher share than those in Germany, 21%, the UK, 27%, and Japan, only 8%. I think all the above makes Americans sound like pretty darn good people. And I dug deeper by looking into the values Americans live by. Here's a summary of an article with the same title. These are the values Americans live by. Okay, I'm just going to walk through them. 1. Personal control over the environment. Americans no longer believe in the power of fate, and they have come to look at people who do as being backward, primitive, or hopelessly naive. To be called fatalistic is one of the worst criticisms one can receive in the American context. 2. Change. In the American mind, change is seen as indisputably good. Change is strongly linked to development, improvement, progress, and growth. 3. Time and its control. Time is, for the American, time is for the average American of utmost importance. Utmost importance. See, I got so carried away with getting this podcast done, I didn't think about the words. So, time is for the average American of utmost importance. 4. Equality and egalitarianism. Equality is, for Americans, one of their most cherished values. This concept is so important for Americans that they have even given it a religious basis. They say all people have been created equal. 5. Individualism and privacy. Individualism, which has been developed in the Western world since the Renaissance, is strong in the United States. Each individual is seen as completely and marvelously unique. It is totally different from all other individuals, and therefore each person is precious and special in their own way. 6. Self-help concept. In the United States, a person can take credit only for what he or she has accomplished by himself or herself. Americans get no credit whatsoever for having been born into a rich family. 7. Competition and free enterprise. Americans believe that competition brings out the best in any individual. They assert that its challenges help each person to produce the very best that is humanly possible. Future orientation. Americans value the future and the improvements that Americans are sure to see come about. 9. Work and action orientation. Don't just stand there, goes a typical bit of American advice. Do something. This expression is normally used in a crisis situation, yet in a sense it describes most Americans' entire waking life. 10. Informality. If you come from a more formal society, you will likely find Americans to be extremely informal and friendly. And you'll probably feel that Americans aren't being disrespectful of authority, but they just enjoy the open and informal and friendly approach. 11. Directness, openness, and honesty. Many other countries have developed subtle, sometimes highly ritualistic ways of informing other people of unpleasant information. Americans, however, have always preferred the direct approach. 12. Practicality and efficiency. Americans have a reputation for being extremely realistic, practical, and efficient. And 13. Materialism and acquisitions. People from other countries generally consider Americans much more materialistic, and Americans would like to think that their material objects are just the natural benefits which always result from the hard work and their serious efforts. A reward, they think, which all people could enjoy were they as industrious and hardworking as Americans. But by any standard, I guess you say Americans perhaps are materialistic. This means that they value and collect more objects than most people would ever dream of owning. It also means that they give higher priority to obtaining, maintaining, and protecting their material objects than they do to developing and enjoying interpersonal relationships. Since Americans value newness and innovation, they sell or throw away their possessions frequently and replace them with newer ones. A car may be kept for only 2 or 3 years, a house for 5 or 6, before trading in for another. So, let me just run down these values once again, mentioning how Americans look at them, and then as other countries. Americans like personal control over the environment, whereas other countries prefer fate. We like change versus tradition. We like time and its control versus human interactions. We like equality versus hierarchy, rank, and status. We like individualism and privacy over group welfare. We like self-help over birthright inheritance. Competition over cooperation. Future orientation over past orientation. Action and work orientation versus a being orientation. We like informality over formality. Directness and openness and honesty versus indirectness, ritual, or saving face. We like practicality and efficiency over idealism, and materialism and acquisitions over spiritual detachments. If we were meeting in person as a group, pausing to compare ourselves with others might be fun to do, but you can do that if you are watching this video with others. I use the material I just covered in a negotiations course I teach because my students must understand and adjust their delivery style when working with team members from a partner company headquartered offshore. Here's one of the books. Global Negotiations, The New Rules. I use this in my negotiations courses. The first chapter talks about our John Wayne American negotiation style, and its description dovetails with the material I just covered. If any listener works with overseas partners, you might find this book helpful. I hope many of you are fortunate like me to live in neighborhoods that hold summertime block parties. I went to one last night in a typical north side of Chicago mixed racial bungalow neighborhood, and afterwards thought to myself how the people I met exuded so many American values. Under a big tent on the front lawn of a Hispanic lady's home, everyone could enjoy the lavish buffet she had set up, courtesy of her very own catering business. Groups of families and friends were sitting and sharing food and lively conversation at table and chair islands in the street, while scads of kids played games and made new friends. The scene was a true modern-day American portrait. I think all of us realize that Americans face many of the same problems people of all countries are dealing with. But we should acknowledge that we the people are still exceptional, and will stay that way by following the values we've always treasured, or perhaps modifying them appropriately while adjusting and adapting to changing conditions. And always remember this poem, titled The New Colossus, written by Emma Lazarus in 1883, a poem that memorializes France's gift to America, the Statue of Liberty. And here's how it goes. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name mother of exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide, welcome her. Mild eyes command. The air-bridged harbor the twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she, with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Its lines appear inscribed on a bronze plaque installed in 1903 on the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. Well, I don't think there's anything I should add, so I'll end here and say thank you for watching or listening, and bye-bye until next time.